In tonight's news edition, the Prime Minister says private hospitals play a key role in promoting medical tourism and pledges help to address problems facing the sector. President Obama says he will work with Congress to step up efforts by support for Syrian opposition groups. And turnout is low in Egypt's presidential election despite a last-minute bid to boost the number of voters. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour called for enhancing achievements by private hospitals and finding solutions to challenges facing them. In a meeting with Private Hospitals Association President Fawzi Hammoudi and members of the association, Mansour praised the bright image that private hospitals have earned in the field of medical tourism. He said that achievement was possible due to the good reputation they have gained as well as their reasonable prices. The Prime Minister also instructed the concerned ministries to cooperate with the Private Hospitals Association to address such challenges as a shortage of Jordanian nurses and the difficulty of employing foreign nurses. Hammoudi outlined key achievements made by Jordan's medical sector, noting that the kingdom had won Best Medical Destination Award for 2014. He said the kingdom has 64 private hospitals that treated 250,000 non-Jordanians last year, thanks to their quality of health services and low cost. Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour met a Pakistani military delegation led by Chairman of the Pakistani Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Rashad Mahmood. Talks dealt with means of boosting cooperation between Jordan and Pakistan in military fields, including the exchange of expertise. Mansour pointed to the challenges facing the two countries, top of which is the fight against terrorism. Thousands of right-wing Israelis staged a provocative march through occupied East Jerusalem, sparking clashes with Palestinians as they breached the old city's Muslim quarter. Scuffles erupted between Israeli forces and Palestinians who had gathered in and around the old city. The extremists were celebrating the anniversary of Israel's annexation of occupied East Jerusalem, a move that did not win international recognition. The occupation authorities have deployed hundreds of troops and parliamentary police across the city. The Israeli forces used stun grenades against Palestinians and detained several of them. There is worldwide support for Palestinian claims to East Jerusalem as the capital of a future Palestinian state. The Holy City is now home to about 300,000 Palestinians. Meanwhile, right-wing Israeli lawmakers are calling on the government to annex about 90 Jewish settlements built on occupied West Bank land. One of the legislators said the annexation is in retaliation for the collapse of peace talks with the Palestinians a month ago. As Israelis stepped up settlement expansion, Palestinians in a village near Nablus in the northern West Bank today awoke to see Israeli earth movers busily flattening the top of a nearby hill. Residents of the village of Kufr al-Dik say the Israeli government is preparing to build a new Jewish settlement outpost on their privately owned land. Peace Now, an Israeli watchdog group, said the Israeli government had advanced plans to build almost 14,000 new settler homes on occupied land in the 9-month period of peace talks. The European Union has said it deplores the settlements, and the United States called them illegitimate. But those countries have taken few obvious steps to slow the spread of settlements. In a major foreign policy address, U.S. President Barack Obama said he will work with Congress to step up American support for Syrian opposition groups. Obama also said Washington will ramp up efforts to support Syria's neighbors, Jordan and Lebanon, Turkey and Iraq, as they host refugees. This report has more.
Class, attention!
In front of the graduating class at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, President Barack Obama hinted that as the U.S. changes its role in Afghanistan, more attention would be paid elsewhere.
Order!
In his address, he cited the ongoing crisis in Syria.
As frustrating as it is, there are no easy answers there. No military solution that can eliminate the terrible suffering anytime soon.
The conflict there has killed more than 160,000 people and forced millions to flee into neighboring countries. Obama defended his decision not to put American troops on the ground, but said more must and will be done. To do so, he announced a $5 billion plan to help train partner countries on security initiatives to battle extremists, such as those in Syria.
So with the additional resources I'm announcing today, we will step up our efforts to support Syria's neighbors, Jordan and Lebanon, Turkey and Iraq, as they contend with refugees and confront terrorists working across Syria's borders.
Obama has been under fire among some members of Congress for not doing more in Syria.
Syrians abroad began voting in an election that looks certain to give President Bashar al-Assad a third 7-year term. Expatriates and those who have fled the war were casting their ballots at dozens of Syrian embassies abroad ahead of next week's vote inside the country. In Lebanon, which holds 1 million Syrians, most of them refugees, were driven to the Syrian embassy in Beirut. Refugees said they had been mobilized by pro-Assad Lebanese groups to vote. Opponents have dismissed the vote as a farce as the fighting rages in its 4th year. Several countries that oppose Assad, including France, have blocked the voting by Syrian government media, said people were still able to participate in many countries. In Syria, there is no let-up in the deadly conflict between government forces and rebels. A car bomb targeting a fuel market in the Syrian town of Marrat al-Nasan and killed at least 15 people. Video posted online also showed the aftermath of a barrel bomb attack in the Maghayir district of the northern city of Aleppo. People were rushing to rescue victims and remove badly mutilated bodies from the rubble-filled streets. Last week, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said barrel bombs, mortar and car bombs had killed and maimed thousands of people over the past few weeks. He expressed shock at the use of bombs in populated areas where children continue to suffer a large number of casualties. Ban also expressed concern for the well-being of 2.5 million people in the besieged city of Aleppo due to the intentional disruption of water supplies by opposition groups. Many Egyptians failed to vote in a presidential election despite official efforts to boost turnout with an extra day of polling. The Democracy International Observer Mission said the decision of extension raised questions about the integrity of the electoral process. This report has more.
A low turnout despite a last-minute extension of Egypt's presidential elections. The 2-day vote was originally due to finish last night, but was extended until tonight to allow the largest number possible to vote. Former Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who is widely expected to win, has called all Egyptians to cast their ballot. Egyptian media put the turnout at 37 to 46% of the electorate of 54 million. A low turnout could be seen as a setback for the field marshal. The vote followed months of adulation by the media encouraged by Sisi's supporters in government, the security services and business. But many Egyptians were shocked when the poll failed to rally the mass support predicted by Sisi himself. Aziza Anwar is a voter from Cairo. She said she was happy that voting was extended because her husband had prevented her from voting on previous days. The vote extension and low turnout have sent Egypt's stock market dropping. The stock market, which rose on Monday to over 8,800 points on the first day of the vote, dropped by 2.3% in the first hour and a half of trading. Trader Najla Faraj said she did not think that if turnout remained low, the market would be significantly impacted, though it might hurt Egypt's image with some investors.
The percentage of participation in the elections does not have a direct effect on the Egyptian stock market. There might be an effect if some investors are worried about the stock market, but generally it does not have a direct effect on the Egyptian stock market. However, the percentage of participation affects stability. It affects the image of the country itself. It improves the picture that we can use for marketing so we can improve the economy and improve things in the future.
In a country polarized since a popular uprising ousted Hosni Mubarak in 2011, the lower than expected turnout was linked to political apathy and calls for a boycott by Islamists. The elections are due to conclude tonight and the final results are expected on the 5th of June. Hiba Al-Atoum for the News at 10.
Outgoing Afghan President Hamid Karzai welcomed a U.S. decision to withdraw all troops from his country by the end of 2016. Karzai said the decision should give the Taliban a reason to end their insurgency and negotiate with the next Afghan government. Karzai has previously been fiercely opposed to signing a security agreement with Washington, which would leave a small contingent of U.S. troops in the country beyond 2014. Yesterday, President Barack Obama outlined a plan to withdraw all but 9,800 American troops by the end of the year and pull out the rest by the end of 2016. The deadline would end more than a decade of military engagement by the U.S.-led forces in Afghanistan.
I believe that decision was good news for the Afghan people. It eliminates the uncertainty about the future here in Afghanistan, in the region, and within the coalition. It also sends a message to those who said that Afghanistan would be abandoned at the end of the year, and that simply isn't true. The President's decision to support a train, advise, and assist mission provides us the opportunity to finish developing a capable and credible Afghan army and police force. We'll also continue to keep pressure on al-Qaeda with a sustained counterterrorism effort.
Ukraine's newly elected President Petro Poroshenko said his country is not ready to set a date for signing a landmark trade deal with the European Union. Meanwhile, fears of further violence stalked the streets of Donetsk, and separatists called on Russian President Vladimir Putin and the Russian people for help. This report has the details.
Shooting in Donetsk as the city in eastern Ukraine braces for a third day of fighting. Sporadic gunfire echoed across various parts of the city after Ukraine's military sought to retake control of Donetsk airport. The rebels, or the pro-Russian troops in Ukraine, are still in control of a number of government buildings in Donetsk and other cities in the east. These have been occupied for more than a month, but Kiev's government has intensified what it calls the anti-terrorism operation and said they would attack them using special high-precision weapons if the separatists did not surrender. Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Moscow was open to dialogue with Ukraine's new President Petro Poroshenko. Lavrov accused the West of pushing Ukraine into what he called a fratricidal war and repeated Moscow's calls for an end to the interim Ukrainian government's military action against pro-Russian separatists. Those who persuade that policy, he said, were not at all concerned that the wedge that they try to drive between different branches of European civilization is being driven across the Ukrainian people. Ukrainian's foreign minister called on Moscow to tighten border control to prevent fighters from Russian territory from entering into Ukraine. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said she had taken a firm stance against Russia's annexation of Crimea, in part due to the lessons of 2 world wars. But she said it's vital to keep talking with Moscow, as she asked Russian President Vladimir Putin to join Western leaders at a ceremony in France next month.
Und ich meine, deshalb bin ich zum Beispiel auch bei der Sache mit der Krim sehr streng.
I'm so strict about the situation with the Crimea because territorial integrity is the pillar of the post-war order in Europe. Germans have been invited again, and I also campaigned a lot for the Russian president to come to the event regardless of the G7 or G8.
Russia and Ukraine are fighting over gas prices, with Kiev wanting to change a 2009 contract that locked it into buying a set volume of gas whether it needs it or not. Moscow threatened to stop supplying the neighboring former Soviet Republic with gas if it fails to make a prepayment by June the 2nd. Louis Balkar for the news at 10.
LeBron James produced a blistering 14-point third quarter as the Miami Heat took a commanding 3-1 lead over the Indiana Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals with a 102-90 win. The Heat's Chris Bosh gave his best performance of the postseason with 17 first-half points, but the home side ran away with the game in the third. Miami burst out with a 12-point lead, and LeBron took charge with 2 spectacular three-pointers and a ferocious dunk among his 14 points in the third. James, who finished with 32 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists, now has 74 career playoff games with at least 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, passing Michael Jordan for the most in NBA history.
They need him to initiate offense and not just wait around till Lance Stevenson departs.
Come World Cup time, Brazil's national soccer team will be traveling in a team plane styled like no other thanks to the hard work of 2 local graffiti artists. At the hand of twin Brazilian artists, the outside of the team's plane has been turned into a mural honoring Brazil's unique ethnic diversity. Passengers chosen to take the plane on its first flight were in awe when they discovered they would be passengers on this wildly painted plane. Brazil, who is considered one of the tournament favorites, will be playing for an unprecedented 6th World Cup title. The airplane canvas needed nearly 100 hours and over 1,000 cans of spray paint to complete. And finally, fair tonight with northwesterly winds. Tomorrow, a slight drop in temperature is expected. Therefore, it will be warm across the country and hot in the Jordan Valley. Winds will be northwesterly moderate. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a warm night and hot day tomorrow with the appearance of clouds, northerly winds, and slightly choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. The Prime Minister says private hospitals play a key role in promoting medical tourism and pledges help to address problems facing the sector. President Obama says he will work with Congress to step up support for Syrian opposition groups. And turnout is low in Egypt's presidential election despite a last-minute bid to boost the number of voters. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.